arrive at Station 10. Jesus is stripped of his garments. This took place in the upper level. When we get to the Holy Sepulchre, we have now arrived there. In Station 9, I talked about him falling, looking through the gates. Right outside the city walls, that western gate is where Calvary stood, Golgotha, the place of execution. And the next station that we're at now, Station 10, this station is inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre today. So we've come in through the courtyard into a sign. It says Holy Sepulchre. It's an old sign. You can hardly read it anymore. And you come into the courtyard of the Holy Sepulchre Church. You go across the courtyard and you walk in the old doors, huge old doors. When we take our groups, we go very early in the morning, so there's no one there yet, maybe only a few people. And we're able to go up the stairs. And you can imagine where that's on those stairs from the millions and millions of pilgrims over the centuries that have gone up those stairs. And we arrive at the top of Calvary. Now, the next few stations take place up here. But it's there, they've got a picture there of Jesus being nailed to the cross. But over here is where it said that this is where he was disrobed, where they took off his garments. They stripped him naked there on the top of Calvary. And at that place, and it's not by chance, there's an old mosaic, and it's kind of hard to see because of all the soot and the smoke from the candles and the oil lamps over the century, but there's a mosaic there. And if you look carefully, it's Abraham offering Isaac and looking down to see the ram with his head stuck in the thorn bush. The church is smart. It knows that's wise. It knows that what's happening here was prefigured with Abraham and Isaac 2,000 years earlier than what happened there. And so you see that image at the very place where Jesus was stripped of his garments. When I was a boy, I was always getting injured. I was kind of a wild kid, broken bones, stitches, lots of bangs, bruises, cuts. And my mom would always put a Band-Aid on. And overnight, it would dry. The scab and the serums and the blood would dry, and the Band-Aid stuck to my skin. My mom said the best way to do it is just to take it and get it off quick and rip it off. Ouch! Oh my goodness, did that hurt. I realize now we could have soaked it in the water a little bit, and it probably would have been a lot better. But my mom would say, here's what we got to do. We got to put a new Band-Aid on. And I think of Jesus when he was whipped and beaten and his skin was all full of blood and that serum that comes out in the beginning of scabs. And then they put his robes back on him. And this whole time he's been walking through the streets, these robes are sticking to the wounds. And when they get there, they grab their clothes and rip it off his skin, opening all those wounds up again. The pain of that must have been excruciating. I like Mel Gibson's movie again. Sorry I keep mentioning it, but it's such a profound movie. And in that movie, you see them rip Jesus' clothes off and expose his battered, bloody, bruised, beaten body. And it flashes back to the upper room where there's a bowl and there's bread and the towel is covering over the bread to keep it warm. And at the moment up on Calvary that they rip the clothes off of Jesus and expose his body, in the upper room they pull the cloth off and they expose the body of Christ in the Eucharist. Powerful, powerful image. They take off Jesus' garments, and as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, one of them was a seamless robe. A robe with no seam. It was woven in such a way that it was a robe for his whole body, but it didn't have any seams in it. A very expensive robe. And the Romans didn't want to split it because that's worth something. These guys would exploit their criminals as much as they could. Take what they had, whatever was theirs, they could take it and sell it or use it the way they wanted to. And here was a very expensive robe. Shows those women took very good care of Jesus, and they didn't want to split it up into parts to give each person a part, because then the value of the robe is gone, so they cast their lots. And interestingly enough, we read in Psalm 28:18, they divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots, rolled the dice. Already prophesied 1,000 years earlier what was going to happen. Psalm 22, by the way, is a great psalm to read during Lent because it is called a messianic psalm. Read through it and see how many quotes you can find that the Bible uses, the New Testament Gospel of Jesus, where they quote Psalm 22. It's a good exercise. The Jews were modest. The Jewish people are very modest people. In the Old Testament, there's rules about covering and clothing, and even today, the religious Jews are very modest. And when you go into the religious areas, only 20% of the Jews in Israel are religious. The others are secular, even atheistic. But they have signs as you come in about modesty, what you must wear, knees covered, your body covered. You don't come in here in an immodest way. The big billboards like that, and they police it in their communities. And yet here we see Jesus. What the Romans would do is they would strip a criminal naked, because not only was there the pain of the wounds and the nails and the crown of thorns and all these things, but there was the utter degradation, dehumanizing, embarrassing in front of your family, and even in this case your mother, and in front of all the people that you have known, and in this case all the people that he'd healed and those who were following, like the women from Galilee. And the typology here is really quite stunning, because Adam and Eve were in the garden naked in their innocence at the tree of life. But because of their sin, they had to be clothed and kicked out of the garden. Jesus comes into the garden clothed, but in order to restore our innocence, he is stripped naked at the tree of death. And in that way, he reverses what happened in the Garden of Eden, and now in the Garden of Gethsemane, a Garden of Calvary or of Golgotha, he reverses that to restore our innocence. Isn't the Bible beautiful? These meditations, when you see how the Old Testament is prefiguring the New Testament and they merge like this together, it's like the Old Testament calls out to the New and the New calls back, and they have this great antiphonal singing going back and forth between the Old and the New Testaments. So Jesus then is stripped of his garments, which was totally humiliating for anybody, especially for Jewish people. And it had to be a very gut-wrenching, not just the pain, but the bearing of the sins of the world, and then being stripped naked in front of everybody in public, and then taken to the cross to be nailed there. And remember, he could have called 72,000 warrior angels, and he could have been released of this. But he said, "My Father, my God, why have you forsaken me? Take this cup from me, but not my will, but yours be done." And at this moment where he's being stripped of his garments, his clothes are being casting lots for his clothes. The wounds are opened again as the garments, his robe is ripped off his back and his chest. And all of the women and all of those who followed him were there seeing this, the utter humiliation of it. But he was paying our penalty. We're actually the ones that should suffer that. We should suffer an eternity in hell because of our rebellion against him. But he was willing to come and do this out of his sheer and ungratuitous, his totally free, gratuitous love. I can't comprehend his love for us, even at this moment, what was happening to him. But I'm sure glad he loved us. I can't see me ever doing anything like that. So the love of God, he's infinite and he is love, and put those two together. It's an forever, eternal, infinite love that he has for us creatures who are made in his image. And now he's stripped of his garments, he's pushed down on the ground, and the cross is made ready for the nails to be put in his hands.